Tonight on the Range Minded Podcast, we talk to Chris Evans. Not Captain America, though. Nope, Captain Australia himself, Chris Evans. If this sounds familiar, well, he's been on the show before, but it's been quite a while. So we catch up, find out what he's doing, how he enjoys long-range shooting, what he's up to now, and, well, take a listen. We kind of wander all over the place. Anyway, enjoy. What is going on, everyone? It's Steve with the Range Minded Podcast. We'd like to excuse Nick for tonight. He had a bunch of stuff going on at work. But after a little bit of wrangling and some begging and a few text messages back and forth, I did get a special guest that may sound familiar to you if you listen to the show for very long. It is Aussie Chris. Chris, what is going on?
G'day, mate. It's I'm good. Things are. Do I say good? I'm in Melbourne, Australia. So, we're just coming out of that longest lockdown in human history. So, but things are getting back to normal pretty quickly.
I hope so, and I don't want to get into the weeds with that kind of stuff, but it's been rough for Victoria. It's been rough for the world, but from what we see in the States, it's been pretty rough in Victoria, especially Melbourne. So I hope you're doing well. One of these days you'll get back over here on this side of the pond and we'll get to hang out.
When we're allowed to travel overseas again, with ease, I'll definitely spend some time.
It's been
over there. I'm looking forward to coming and shooting some real guns, so that'll be good.
Yes, it's been long overdue.
Yeah, it is.
So let's catch people up a little bit about we got a lot of new listeners. I've got a bunch of different feeds now that I didn't have a few months ago. So let's just reintroduce you again. So tell me a little bit about you, Chris.
Well, you and I have known each other for 20 odd years.
Gosh, it's crazy.
Which has been a long 20 years. I don't know. Steve Australia for a couple of years, so that's where we really got to know each other, and we've kept in contact over the last period of time. I grew up obviously in Australia. I grew up in a country rural area, and I've been an avid recreational shooter since I was about 12, about 12 years old. From the first time I ever fired a gun to now, I've loved it. So just to bring people up to speed on that, I started shooting prior to 1996. So I grew up, shooting semi-autos and other different rifles.
Pre-Port Arthur, right?
Pre-Port Arthur. So the change in gun laws to where they are now in Australia. So look, I've always loved it. I've been deer shooting and fox hunting, and I've helped landowners, do pest management, rabbits and other things. Kangaroos. I wasn't necessarily going to add that in, but yeah, it is legal.
A lot of Americans don't understand that kangaroos are a nuisance. They're everywhere. Well, for the most part.
Yeah. I don't know. Were you with me when we hit the kangaroo in Perth? Anyway,
no, I wasn't.
Kangaroos. Look, they are a native animal, and it's illegal to shoot them for no reason. But when you have landowners, then you can get a permit from our Department of Environment, or DNRE. I think that's what they're called now. Bees, fleas, and trees. To go and to manage those, so you can get a head count, and you can go out there with a primary producer or a landowner and cull them. So I've done that a lot.
So I have a question with the culling. So if you're and maybe people won't understand this either. I didn't get a chance to eat kangaroo when I was over there. Oh no, actually I did. I did eat kangaroo. As you're culling, can you eat them after you've killed them or no?
The law is that you can't harvest them for meat.
So even after
you're
you've gone through the pest control, you can't eat them at that point.
That well, the law states that you can't know.
Oh, that's too bad.
So
What a waste.
yeah, it feels that way, but there's so many of them. It's um,
But I've talked.
So you look
have
up.
talked to people. Oh, well, let's go. Yeah, let's keep going. Sorry.
No. Look, it's no. Look, I've been around guns for a very long time. It's been a passion and a hobby of mine. I've owned many different rifles over the years, and I've done many different kinds of shooting. At the moment, I'm really involved in my long range. So my long range target shooting. Starting to get into PRS, but still enjoy what we call F class here. And I use a 6.5 for that. I've got a Tikka TAC A1 and more for that. And more recently, I've gotten into long range precision 22. So I'm shooting targets out to 300 plus meters.
And what platform are you?
Trying to.
What platform are you shooting the 22?
I've invested probably more than I should have in that. So I've got a CZ 457. I've got the LRP, which is their long range precision platform. So there's actually not that many of them here in Australia, but they're a beautiful rifle. So they're designed with a matched chamber and a fluted barrel, and a specific stock, and they're very, very, very accurate straight out of the box.
The CZ makes a great rifle.
They do. So I think they originally when they were the Brunos, they were just a copy of an Anschutz or a cheaper Anschutz. Yeah. And now they've come into their own, and the 457 is a really, really good platform. So I really enjoy that. It's a lot cheaper to shoot too, so it's very good. But no, and look, I've got mates of mine. I want to get my pistol license again, or my handgun license again, so I can start shooting that again. Yeah. So yeah, it's very good. So that in a nutshell, that's my involvement around the sport and makes it relevant. And I've been over to the States Steve and I have shot guns a few times, or a lot of different handguns and a lot of the AR platforms and some of the fully automatic things, and I hope to get over again soon.
You need to. I hope it opens up to where we can hang out again in person and not over the internet. So with your Creedmoor and whatever other platforms you're running, what's ammo like to get in Australia? It's been difficult lately here in the States. I wondered if it was the same over there.
It is the same. It's the same. Luckily, I guess, wouldn't call me a prepper. I guess I'm. I enjoy my camping and things like that. So I've got lots of gear, and I made strategic decisions not to get any exotic calibers. So I run a 308. I've got 223s. I've got 6.5 Creedmoors. I've got 22s. I've got there's a 300 Win Mag there, 300 WSM, 243s, and so on. So I've kind of gone down that road of making sure that I've had calibers that are easily available, and I reload
sure
for that. But the cost of ammunition has jumped. So for us, a 20 pack of Hornady match, 6.5 Creedmoor, 140 grain, you're looking at $65 to $70 a pack now.
Australian, yeah. So and
Australian.
and it's almost that much American here now. Like I don't have a Creedmoor.
Mm.
I've kind of chosen not to go that route, um, and maybe I should have. I didn't know if that cartridge is even gonna catch on, but it's very popular, obviously. And now there's a
Mm.
new, and maybe you haven't heard of it or not. There's that new 6.8 Western. That's a pretty interesting cartridge that I might have to do something with, but it's just more money to spend.
I want to go what is it, a 6 millimeter arc. Um, I want to go an arc. Um,
Yeah.
I hear they're very good, and they've got they fit into an AR platform, and
Yeah.
no, yeah. So look, I hear good things. So I mean, it's based off the Grendel, isn't it?
The Arc
Yeah.
or it very well could be. I don't know enough about that cartridge.
I'm surprised. I would think that you would be all over anything that was AR.
The Grendel, I know.
So
I built a Grendel for a friend of mine. I should say I helped him build the Grendel. I didn't buy the parts or anything. He bought everything. But finding that kind of ammo is absolutely ridiculous right now too. I think lately I've decided I'm going to build a 308 AR. I think that's my next build.
yeah, look, I think well, that's off an AR-10 platform, isn't it? So
Correct. Yeah.
but I mean I thought about that as well. I mean if I was living in the States, everyone, I would have more guns than you could poke a stick at. But
and yes, I'm
but
trying
look,
to get him to move. I'm trying to get him to come to the States because we need him here.
Yeah, you're too kind. No, but I like maybe if you did some research on the 6 millimeter arc, you'd see that it's got the same amount of energy downrange as a 308 or even more. And I think for me, given I've always loved long range shooting, it's about ballistic coefficients and it's about energy downrange. That's it's important to me. And I think that, and the fact is, you can carry more in this platform as an AR-15
Sure.
with the same amount of energy and more accuracy. I think it's probably worth a look. I mean, because an AR-10 is good, but it's a lot bigger and bulkier, and
So I wonder
you have a lot more.
So while you're on your computer there, I could hear you tapping away. Take a look at that 6.8 Western. Because they're pretty similar, actually. The Arc's kind of a stubby little fella, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's
30 cal. That's interesting.
So it's 6.8 Western. Let me have a look. Okay. That's an interesting looking thing. What platform does that go in?
It would probably be on the AR-10 as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 30 cal, so I mean it's probably right in there with the Western as well. Or I mean the Arc.
Is it a 30 cal? Because if it's 6.8, is that 6.8 mil?
Yeah.
So it's 7.62 is 30 cal, isn't it?
Oh yeah. So it's like a 280.
But yeah, no. Look, it's definitely. I'll read up on this. Yes. But I think you will like the 6 millimeter arc because it was actually designed by Hornady for a branch of the military, specifically. But anyway,
I'm gonna have to look into it.
So that's interesting. You've got an Aussie telling you about stuff that doesn't even exist here. So
well, long range stuff really isn't my bag. Like the reason why I was thinking 308 was just for the sake of ammunition management, right? I just look at what NATO's running, and I know, hey, that's a popular cartridge. Which I know it's kind of a dog now compared to what everybody's shooting, but
I guess
I was just thinking of acquisition of ammunition.
No, I agree with you, and I guess that was always my idea, is to look at what will be available, surplus or anything. But if a branch of the military adopts something, then hopefully the ammunition companies will tool up to be able to support it. And so then, and that's what's happened with the 6.5 Creedmoor. It's that's got the same muzzle energy as a 300 Win Mag down at 1,000 meters. So, energy, not muzzle energy, but
coefficient
energy on target. Yeah, energy on target at 1,000 meters as a 300 Win Mag. Smaller bullet, and so on. But that's what you need. Flatter shooting, really, recoil management's easier. I can see why people like it. And a lot of the guys in the PRS world are moving to a 6mm for that very reason. They want to be able to spot their shots on target and have less recoil management, but still want a flat shooting.
Yeah, it's pretty
hard hitting round.
Pretty interesting. I was just looking here on a photo on the Googleizer here, and it's a little shorter case wise than the Grendel. So it's interesting that it's pumping out a lot of energy.
Don't quote me on that, but I think it's actually built off the Grendel. Grendel
it looks like it's a little bit
round.
So it's just a hair smaller and shorter. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some studying.
So they can put the longer BC bullets in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the reason why I was leaning towards building a new 30 caliber AR is because I recently was talking to a friend of mine that also guides hunts in Texas, and I was just joking around with him. He's headed down in January for 6 weeks, and I was like, "Well, man, while you're down there, find me a hog hunt." And he says, "Well, do you want to be on the ground or do you want to be in a helicopter?" And well, obviously I want to be in a helicopter, but he says, "Well, those start around $2,000." So I'm already going to be about $4,000 into it if I build the rifle and fly in a helicopter. So it better be worth it, and you better be there with me, next to me.
Well, I mean, when SHOT Show, because I would love to have an excuse to come over, and I think the borders are opening up properly enough, so
SHOT Show
I might be able to come over.
Starts January 18th.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we'll think about that.
Yeah, it would be a blast.
So, I guess, sorry everybody, it feels like we're rambling. So, what did we want to talk about today?
So, well, I had some ideas to talk about things. I don't know if you're comfortable talking about them or not, but we don't have to talk about them. Originally, before Nick told me he was unable to get on the show tonight, which I don't think you've met Nick, have you? Nick Hoffer with Hoffer Holsters.
No.
I was going to go through a few scenarios of some home invasions and things, and I don't know if that interests you or not at all. We don't have to talk about that.
No, look, I guess it'd be interesting perspective for people to understand the difference between, I guess, some of the Australian perspective on that and American, because we don't, it's against the law here to use a firearm in self-defense because they're not for that. So the legal, I guess, I know some of your listeners may be interested in understanding, Australia, we've gone through the gun buyback and we've gone through some of the other, getting rid of all of the semi-automatic weapons and so on, and what that means moving forward. And I know we've talked about this before, but I guess it would be an interesting segue to actually maybe give some listeners perspective on why that worked in Australia, and why personally I feel that wouldn't necessarily work in America.
Well, and I had some other stuff we could share too. Some Guns America articles that I was reading this afternoon about some upcoming gun laws, which might be a little interesting to talk about too. That California is trying to implement.
Look, I think for people to really understand, Australia and guns, you need to understand where we've come from and where America has come from. So, I mean, all of your listeners are probably really well grounded in American history and how America came to be, and more so than me because I'm not American. But the basic reason is Australia never had conflict. Well, let's just say we never had major conflict to be able to keep Australia. We the first settlers landed. There were obviously the convict settlers, and then they came. The British sent more boats and sent more convicts, and then when people had served their term, they said, great, well, you can go back to England or you can stay here. And it's like, well, why would I want to go back there? So and then but during that time you had British rule and their law, and so that they always had the you might say the military, and then later the police, we'll call it in inverted commas. And so because of that, there was no real there was conflict. There was conflict among the indigenous population and so on like that, but and there was conflict among we've had like the Australian bushrangers and so on, but there wasn't ever an opposing force to say, I'm going to take your country, or I'm going to take this off you, like it was with the French and the Redcoats, and then the other wars that happened in America, and the more conflicts, and then the need for militias and the need to protect those things. So the way our systems of government and the way our laws are and so on, that it's very different. And guns, the gun culture it's never been in place. I mean, we haven't had self-defense laws in inverted commas. We do have laws surrounding self-defense, but we don't have specific self-defense laws that say you can shoot somebody who's on your property, and that's okay. We talked about this before. So
in fact, it makes me think back to something you said that I still think about often is for Australia, it was only a privilege, where in the United States it was a right. And hopefully people understand the difference of those two here in America. I think a lot of times they just think of it as a privilege, where it is an ingrained right in our Constitution.
Exactly. And so it's a different way, and our relationship with firearms is passionate. It's real, but the use of firearms here was don't get me wrong, we had the Eureka Stockade, we had where people would uprising over the government and so on, and we've had all that, but I mean, it wasn't firearms here were never really used for that conflict or for that purpose. It was Australia still produces some of the best shooters in the world, but it's more
absolutely.
It's more because of the hunting or the sport shooting culture that we have, or the farm or pest management. Like I speak to all of my mentors that I grew up with, and they walked around after school with a 22 shooting rabbits, and that was their hobby, and that's what they did. Or they shot ducks every duck season, and very passionate about that, and so that family culture went to skeet shooting and so on, and duck shooting, or went to skilled trick shots and other things like that with the 22 and other things. But it wasn't, we didn't really have a culture of people walking around with 6 guns, shooting someone dead in the street. Like it's the culture that was different. And so it's such an ingrained part of the American way. It's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. How do you untangle something that's so there? So it's
Yeah.
I genuinely feel it's more about managing it. Trying to be look for responsible alternatives, because me being an outsider looking in, and listening to all sides of the media, it's clear that there's a problem. There's a problem, and there's a problem that both sides of the fence recognize. That, and this, I think I was listening to, I can't remember the exact thing. I think it was one of Joe Rogan's podcasts, but it was clear that there's a problem on both sides. Or there's a problem with guns in America, and both sides want to fix it. It's just that both sides have different ideas about what to do to fix it. And
I don't know, and I don't know if it's necessarily a gun problem as it is a societal problem where it's just deprived so much.
And I think you are right. And my language, and I'm not trying to be offensive to anybody, but the gun problem, I think there is like a definite societal problem. I remember us having a conversation in our last podcast, and you said you went to school, every truck in your back, with a rifle in the back window of your truck, and you never thought once of pulling it out and doing anything, but it was there, but you were responsible, and the people around you were responsible, and there was a level of that. But I think society, and now I'm not talking about guns. I think society as a whole has tried to, in a lot of aspects, try to cater to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
In so many things. So it's like, well, if this person can't handle it, then we all have to live with it. Or if this person can't do that, then we've all got to adjust our standard to the very lowest of low, or the very simple way of thinking to cater for these extremes and so on.
And I think some of that is the media and politicians on honestly both sides of the aisle here in the United States anyways have done such a good job into segregating us into little tribes and then tell us that the other tribes are always wrong. And so we get that underlining disdain for people that may not think the same way that we do, or just because they have a Democrat after their name, a D or an R or whatever, that or they're too stupid to understand what it is. And really conversation is all that's needed to, that's the beginning of fixing stuff, is just having a conversation. And there might be some gun laws that need to be changed in the United States. I don't know. I think there's, we have 20,000 gun laws on the books in the United States already between state and federal. I think we just need to carry out those laws when things happen. And maybe we would see a little bit different results if we actually executed those laws that already exist.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think an understanding of the laws would be a good place to start.
Yeah,
there's 20,000 of them. It'd be hard to even think that.
Yeah, between and people might think that's hyperbolic. No, that's reality. There's over 20,000 firearms laws between state and federal across the 50 states. So that's a lot.
It is. Look, I go back to a point that you said earlier about the I guess the tribalism and the us and the them, and I think that the older I get, the more I realize that people don't like their opinions being challenged.
Yeah.
And they're not willing to listen. And I think that's sad and dangerous, because it's one thing to have an opinion, but I think I was always taught that if you have one, then you need to be able to defend it.
Sure.
And you need to be able to articulate why you have that opinion. And if you can't, then you should probably do more research and understand why you feel that way. But I think now more and more, I think people have their ideas and have their ideals and have things, but they are willing to voice them, and they are willing to share them. But when they get challenged, or when someone wants to actually understand why, or someone, it's getting harder for people to. They don't like being challenged. They don't like that. So
Well, it's so much
I
easier
think
to have
yeah.
it's so much easier to have an opinion than it is anything else. And some of that, I think, even comes down to social media, where it sees what we like and share, and then it creates this algorithm to where we only see those kind of things in our feeds, and it just kind of feeds that ignorance, I guess is a better way to put it, that we don't want to learn more because we think we've seen it all already.
Mm. Yeah, I think back to, I mean, we're old enough to recognize time before the internet, and if I wanted to know anything, we had the World Book Encyclopedia there, and
Yep.
I had to go and look it up, and I had to go and read about it, and I had to get the information that was on hand, and then I had to trust the information that was given to me was correct, and you'd form opinions and ideas based on the people around you that you were associating with. And I guess one of the things that I feel that did was it released information to us slowly, and where we got the information from also gave us context.
Yeah.
Whereas now, and we perfect example, when we were looking up different things before this, we typed into Google and we got 10 different articles within 3 seconds. And
yeah,
it's like, well, first thing, where are these from? Who has written these? What's their point of view? What's the source? And I think that's the thing. We have so much information, and not just younger people, but everybody has so much information available to them now. And it's about having information with context to be able to make decisions, and to be able to interpret those things and see what's good for you, and what you agree with, rather than, I think people now just have so much information. It's becoming harder to contextualize it and put it into perspective. So
yeah, the on-demand stuff has really kind of messed with our education. I mean, you think about it, as we were talking, I was thinking, so when I was a kid, my mom expected me to read books, and she would always bring stuff like classical literature, right? Nobody reads classical literature anymore. Nobody understands how that works. I mean, even the Bible, how many people really read the Bible anymore? They may read newer translations, but we were brought up with the King James version with Old English, and nowadays kids don't even know what those words are.
I guess people do read that stuff. I mean, people do read Shakespeare. People do that, but I think it's just a lot less than we think.
Yeah.
And I think about my nephews now, and I've got one nephew that loves literature and loves reading, and he's a very good. He studied creative writing, and he studied writing. He's very, very into that, and so I think people do invest in that. People do, but I know what you mean by saying,
but not
nobody,
like they used
very
to.
few, not that they used to, and I think we do live in the era of a soundbite, a meme. Who would have? I mean, we didn't even know what memes were, but
no,
people get their information from headlines,
or a 10-second TikTok video.
Yeah, or a Twitter post that's 147 characters or something like that. So
yeah,
like, and this becomes factual information, and this becomes, you hear something, and then that becomes news, or that becomes real, and I think, we talked about this before about, both sides of the aisle. Like it's becoming so far left and so far right. I crave middle ground,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about things we hadn't even thought of, but I mean, I crave being able to have that conversation and saying that what you're sharing is an opinion that's different to mine. Please tell me how you got there.
Yeah.
How did you find that? Like, what, I'm my my business partner. He had someone working with him, and this is actually an interesting story, and it ties in with getting back to the gun theme. He had someone working for him, and she actually had a terrible experience with the police and with firearms when she was a teenager, and I won't go into detail with it, but whatever happened was tragic, and somebody died, and it was a police shooting, and so on. So her framework and view of firearms and guns has just been completely negative. And she grew up in the city. She'd never had any interaction with these things before, and so from her perspective, it was just bad. And I remember I was in the office, and I just said casually, Matt, my business partner, said to me, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going shooting with some mates." And then immediately it was just like, "You're terrible, you're bad, you're this and that, da 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 da." And it was because her experience with it was
Just
terrible,
jaded her. Yeah.
just really, really bad, and obviously some traumatic things happened. And I guess, I mean, I liked her. I mean, as a person, we'd never talked about this before. She'd never given, and I didn't get my back up. I mean, the first thing was, like, oh, sorry. Can you tell me why do you feel this way? And I actually took the time to go, why do you feel that? Like, why do you feel like that way about guns and firearms, and why, and when she shared the experience that she had, I could see it, anybody that had gone through that would have such a negative way of thinking. And I'd never experienced that. I would never want to experience that, and so on. So going back to it, like, I could appreciate her point of view, and I didn't judge her for it. But if we didn't take the time to ask why, I would never have known such a tragic story that had happened. And then, given her the benefit of the doubt and understanding, saying, you know what, if I had gone through that, I would probably feel the same way. But my experience has been this, and I'm not going to stop enjoying what I do, what my hobby and sport is. But I know not to bring it up around you. I know not to do that in the future. And, we're friends. So it just highlights, that's just one story, and it's gun related. So I thought it just shows the importance of being able to ask that question, the question, why do you feel that way? What experiences have you had that form your opinion on that? And I think we can all get there.
And that's needed. Like right now, especially now with as crazy as everything outside the gun community, just what's going on in the world right now, is if people would just communicate instead of throw out memes and burp up, regurgitate stuff that they just read. Instead, if they would just talk and listen, which is the missing part of everything, is listening, then there's probably a lot more common ground that we all meet on anyways.
Yeah. Look, it's about wanting to understand. And I think, as you've raised that tribalism thing before, the more people retreat into their tribes, the more you're surrounded with opinions that don't differ from you.
Yeah, and it's a comfortable place.
It's a comfortable place, and it actually takes a lot to step outside your comfort zone again, or to associate with people that think differently from you, but not get your back up, but actually open to discussion.
Yeah.
And you've got to have two willing participants, and Oh, look, I've seen that here in Melbourne, and we're not going to talk about COVID or the things, but where, we really have had it hard with a lot of our civil liberties and our
Yeah.
freedoms per se have been encroached on for the greater good, in inverted commas, for the greater good. And so you have these people that just want to get back to living their life, and they just want that, they want everybody to make a decision that benefits everybody, apparently, in inverted commas, and just so we can all move on. And there are other people that don't want people telling them what to do and equally valid reasons, their own
Yeah.
concerns, and they want to stick their heels in and say that. So, I mean, personally, and I will share, I am, I'm the person that wants you to have your liberty. I will fight for your decision not to do something as much as for you to do something. I think that is, we've forgotten what's most important, and that's our freedom to choose. Our agency is the greatest God-given gift, and I still believe that's the reason why we're all here, is so that we can exercise that for a greater purpose. And so
I agree.
Anything that encroaches on that, whether it be to my detriment or someone else's detriment, I don't think it's right. And I think we really need to kind of take that personal point of view out of it and look at the common theme, which is, if we really want everyone to have agency, then we should all be fighting for the same thing.
Agreed. So yeah, I agree. So you mentioned that you've some long range stuff. Back to the gun stuff for a minute. So in Australia, so you've been to the States, you know what it's like with some of the ranges, like over at Independence, where you got 100-yard indoor range. What are the ranges like in Australia compared to the States?
Look, different. Look, it's highly regulated, so you can't just. There are some ranges that are club owned, or organization here called the SSAA, which is the Sporting Shooters Association of Australia. You'd loosely, not to make comparisons, but you'd loosely call it, the NRA of Australia. It's an advocate for shooters.
I sure hope it's better than the NRA. I sure hope it is.
Well, and that's me loosely saying that it's not the NRA, and I don't have experience with the NRA, but what I do know about the NRA is that it's supposed to be a national organization to support and foster, firearms and firearm usage, gun rights. The Sporting Shooters Association is an association for people that exactly what it says. They're sport shooters, and they you can join that, and then they lobby government to make sure that our gun laws are fair, and that people have places to shoot for recreation and for sport. They run ranges, and so there's and clubs, so people can join those clubs and go and shoot at different venues. And so we've got a couple of larger ranges here. We've got a rimfire and handgun range outside the city, and that's a 50-meter range for rimfire, and it's out to 50 meters as well for handguns. And you have club events there, and members of the general public can turn up and they can ask to shoot, and they can be, pay a fee, and they can be supervised and so on. So that's that. And then we've got another range, meter range. Notice I'm not saying yards because we don't use yards here because we have a metric system. But we have a 500-meter range here. That's about an hour from where I live. And you can go down there and pay your fee if you're a member. And then you can shoot all day. And you can put targets out at different ranges, but they've got range officers that make sure you're doing the right thing. And it's fairly regulated, for safety reasons and
Sure.
for other things. But it's still, we've got access to ranges. There's other ranges and clubs around that they might shoot on a private range, or they might shoot on. So we've got a 1,000-meter range out in Bendigo. That's about an hour and a half from where I live. When I was in Queensland, Queensland's a very it's a more bogan state. Bogan state. So if you know what that means.
They don't know what a bogan is.
Yeah, well, you can explain it then. But no, Queensland's, a bit more rough, and, they enjoy, they enjoy the firearms more up there.
I wouldn't say it's like a redneck. I don't even know how to describe a bogan. They're kind of backwoodsy, hillbilly, rough and tumble. I don't know how to even explain it.
Bogans aren't necessarily backward. It's just it's a colloquial term for a very Aussie, g'day mate. It's like a Paul Hogan kind of figure or whatever. But no, Queenslanders. I love Queensland. I used to live up there, and there's a shooting complex there. It's called the Belmont Shooting Complex. It's about 10 kilometers, or we'll say less than 10 miles, about 8 miles from and you've got, a 1,000-meter range. You've got, shotgun ranges. You've got 2 pistol clubs. You've got another 2 500-meter ranges. You've got, it's a huge shooting complex. And so, we have a really, really solid shooting culture here in Australia.
Yeah.
And when you're passionate about it, there's a lot of passionate people for it, but we've only got 22 million or 24 million people here. So, that's like the size of Texas, or not even, I don't know how many people live in Texas, but.
Well, Los Angeles has 25 million people or something in LA.
Yeah. So it's yeah.
So when you go,
I was actually.
We were talking. You kind of mentioned going to other states between, Victoria and but so other states like Western Australia, or they're far more strict, aren't they? When you get outside of
Victoria. So probably Victoria and Queensland have some of the better gun laws. Queensland and the Northern Territory probably have the most relaxed gun laws. New South Wales are a lot more strict. WA is very strict. So it's state-based as well.
Okay. So it's kind of like here in the States, where we have kind of a federalist idea where there's some national gun laws, but states are welcome to make them more strict or different than what the national gun laws are.
Yeah. So for example, in Western Australia,
which is beautiful, might I add.
It's beautiful, but the gun laws are very strict. So, for example, you can't.
That's why I don't live there anymore.
You can't shoot on a property unless that property is registered with your license. So, for example, if someone said to me, "Oh, I want to go and shoot or hunt there," then you actually need express permission to be able to do that. Not only from the landowner, but from my understanding, and I could be wrong, but you actually need to have that noted somewhere in your license. One thing I do know for sure about the license regulations in Western Australia is that the calibers of rifle and firearms that you own are listed on the back of your license.
Yeah, they all have to be notated, right?
Yeah. So you have your license, which is a little plastic card, and when you go to buy ammunition, if the ammunition that you were wanting to purchase is not listed on your license, then they won't sell it to you, or they're not allowed to sell it to you, I should say. Yeah. So it's fairly strict. So if I'm going shooting with a friend of mine and he says I'm licensed, You know, it's like go down and I've run out of 308. Could you go and get me a box of whatever? And you don't own one. It's not listed on your license. Technically, you wouldn't be able to buy one. So that's
And
just one state.
that's
So,
the way California is right now too, though. Actually,
okay.
as far as I understand, yeah.
It's not like that here. So you know, if I've got my gun license, then I can go and buy any ammunition I want. So
that's why I want to open a range down there.
Well, you know, but no, look, definitely that's you know, our gun laws are strict, but look, it's been so long since the changes and everything. People just
it's almost been
abide by it.
Generation. It's a whole nother generation now that experiences it.
And so people, if you want to shoot, you do what's asked of you. And,
right.
and I know that might sound, it's a bit of a different, like I said, the culture's different, the things are different, but you know, I really do love shooting. I love my firearms. So I won't do anything that would jeopardize, you know, me being able to, compromise my ability to do that. So, you know, I keep things within the law and I can have fun. So,
which oddly is what most gun owners do anyways. They abide by the law, and because states, man, I enjoy having my firearms and recreational shooting, and I'm not going to live my life in a way that I'm going to jeopardize that either. And because I enjoy it. The funny thing is no matter what, bad people are going to do bad things, no matter what tool is at their disposal, whether it's a knife or a gun or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's the person, not the tool.
Well, this brings us to, I guess, in a roundabout way, to what we were wanting to talk about, which is more like your home defense or your home invasions and things that have happened in America. So why don't you tell me about some of your things, and we can.
Here's a short one real quick that I'll read it. So around 5 a.m., this is Daytona Daily News, this is Dayton, Ohio. Okay, around 5 a.m. on October 12th, an unknown man allegedly entered a residence in Perry Township, Ohio, and began assaulting the residents. One of the occupants was able to retrieve the firearm during the assault and shoot the suspect 4 times before he fled in a vehicle. Officers later found him walking down the road and took him to a nearby hospital for treatment for his gunshot wounds. The homeowners were also taken to the hospital for evaluation. Once the intruder was released from the hospital, he was booked on suspicion of aggravated burglary and felonious assault. So, on that little short story, we hear that the homeowners were able to retrieve a firearm that they had stashed in the home somewhere.
Does it actually say that it was a retrieved one that was stashed, or did they find it from him? Did they wrestle it from him?
It says to retrieve a firearm during the assault in the story. So without going into, jumping on the internets and really digging into it, I just assumed it was something that they had somewhere, whether it be in a nightstand or something. It doesn't say that they got it from the bad guy. So they were able to use a firearm in defense of life in their home. Now, I don't know all the gun laws in Ohio. I imagine they're not as terribly strict. At least compared to what you're used to, they're probably extremely lax. But still, they were able to defend their life with a firearm. And most states are that way in the United States. And I've got a few others we could go through if you want. But that was just the quickest story right at my fingertips.
So, if you want, do you want my personal opinion on that? Like, if there's any issue with that? Because I don't have an issue with that.
Well, that was quick.
No, like, I mean, again, it comes down to environment. So, if I had someone come into my home here in Australia, where I'm at, the chances that they would be armed with a firearm would be negligible, right?
Yeah,
because
far less.
Access to firearms is incredibly limited. So, if I was to, like, for starters, it would be illegal for me to use one of my firearms in self-defense. Okay, flat out, it's illegal to do that. Okay, so simply because all of my firearms need to be under lock and key, ammunition needs to be stored separately, preferably with the bolts taken out. The safes, the storage containers for the rifles or for my firearms needs to be built out of a certain material, not easily accessible, bolted to the floor in some instances if it's less than 150 kilos. So there's a whole range of firearm storage that would prohibit me from being able to go and grab it easily and defend myself. So it just doesn't happen here. But if someone was to come into my home and I play golf, so if I grab one of my golf clubs and try to defend myself, depending on what the aggressive outcome is, like if I chased him off and that was it, then that's fine. And if he was adamant that he wanted to kill me and I did that first, I think it would be up to the courts whether or not I did something wrong. But
Sure.
In this particular instance, because he was in America, and I say that because he was in America, and because the chances that someone is armed coming into your home, and because the laws allow it, then I would do anything that was within the bounds of the law to defend myself and my family. That's it.
And I think
I don't find that wrong.
And I think self-defense is a natural instinct. Like if you've spent any time doing any kind of martial art or anything, you kind of know, or even been in a fight. I guess we could go even that rugged. Like normally, if somebody's coming at you, your instinct is to bring up your hands and kind of cower a little bit in defense, right? That's a defensive reflex that every person has. And honestly,
Yeah.
I think self-defense or self-preservation is a natural tendency. Some of us may be more inclined to actually do something.
Yeah. I'd say self-preservation is the natural instinct, and that can be your fight or flight mechanism. So some people, if they're faced with danger, they just run, and that's still self-preservation.
Or they freeze.
Yeah.
They play dead.
Or they fight for their life. So
yeah, which I hope everybody's willing to do, because I don't want to die. I mean,
yeah,
I don't want to die in a vicious manner. I guess I'll put it that way. I'm not scared of death.
No. It's inevitable. It's something that's going to happen to all of us. So, but no, look, as far as that particular case is concerned, I don't have a problem with that. Again, I mean, we don't know all the details behind it and so on, but if that person was genuinely trying to defend their family, then I really don't see that there's an issue with that. With the legal means that are available to you at the time.
Yeah,
I think that let's do whatever's necessary.
And I do, and we've talked about it before on the show. I don't know if I've told you. I've been doing a lot of knife stuff lately, learning how to use a knife as a defensive tool. And one thing that we always talk about is in this particular style of knife fighting or defense that we're doing, it's only limited to, we're trying to disarm the person. It's not meant to maim or kill a person. Everything we do is just about targeting certain places to make them unable to control a weapon. That's what it's all about. So in Idaho, anyways, in the state of Idaho, we're only allowed to use the means of force that would stop the threat. Sometimes that is all the way up to taking somebody's life. Or, for instance, if somebody comes at me with a knife and I deploy my knife that I happen to have and disarm that guy, it's not legal for me to keep slashing and stabbing. As soon as that threat's gone, if he's dropped the knife, I have to stop. Otherwise, I'm the aggressor. I'm the bad guy. So I think it's important to understand, and maybe there's a lot of people that don't get that when it comes to even firearm defense. We only shoot to stop the threat. We don't shoot to murder. We don't shoot to kill. It's just only to the level of violence necessary. So I don't know. And it may be the same way down there. Like you're saying, maybe if you had your golf club and you had that at your disposal, sure, if you hit the guy once, he takes off. That's one thing. But I imagine if the guy falls down and you continue to bludgeon him with your 5-iron, that would probably be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, we were looking at one of the things that I will stress right now is that, you know, to my detriment, I'm not across all of our self-defense laws here. I know.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot to
are.
know. I'm sure.
Oh yeah, there is. I know what they are in relation to using firearms. Okay, so that's a no-go. You don't do it.
Right.
But you know, it comes down to common sense. Like you said, if I pulled out my golf club and, you know, I hit the guy a few times and then, you know, he felt, you know, he was afraid and he ran off. If I chased after him and, you know, ran him down with my car and then got out and then, you know, tried to tee off using his head, that would be inappropriate. But if he ran off and then I was able to call the police and say, look, there's a guy that broke into my house. I've chased him down the street. You know, I hit him with my golf club, but, you know, he's gone. He you know, he was threatening my family, I can only assume that would be okay because I didn't use that as a force of an act as aggression. It was used to defend, and as we read in the laws before, actually, it was, you know, to defend your property, family, wife, or things like that. So, or spouse, right. And so, and that's what it is actually in the law as far as self-defense is concerned. You can, you know, do things to exercise that. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So that again, it depends on where you are. So like here in Australia, you can't use that kind of deadly force against someone. It's illegal to carry knives. You know, it's illegal to carry them. So if you were to use a knife in self-defense, the first thing is, well, why did you have something that you're not supposed to carry? Whereas, for example, and this is why I kind of asked the question before, if someone came at you with a knife and it was their knife and you disarmed them and then you picked it up to defend yourself, I would hazard a guess that would be a completely different scenario.
Yeah.
Because if the person was disarmed and then they kept coming for you and you used that weapon that was their weapon that they originally used against you to keep them away, to keep them at bay, that's not, you know, that couldn't be considered a bad thing. But if I picked up his knife and then chased him down the street and stabbed him 10 times, that's another story, you know. So I guess it's all about the intent of what you're trying to achieve, because if it is self-defense, you're only there to defend yourself.
Yeah. I imagine you should probably be able to articulate the experience as well.
Yeah. So, but that I guess that's it. So, I mean, I'm happy to listen to other ones, but I think I guess I made my personal opinion pretty clear that I wouldn't have a problem with that. I'd do anything I could under the law.
I'm guessing you wouldn't disagree with some of that stuff. Maybe you knew this already. Did you know that there was a shooting at my daughter's school last year? Did you ever hear about that?
Yeah, we talked about that, and I remember calling you just to check and make sure everyone was okay. So
yeah, I couldn't remember if we had that conversation. So we don't need to talk about that. Well, maybe. So you heard about the most recent shooting, right? The school shooting, not here in Idaho, but in Michigan.
No, I haven't heard about that.
So that's one of those things that I think rushing to judgment on what's going on is a problem. So this kid, you probably should look it up. So I'm sure I'm going to butcher the context of the story. This kid had some issues previous in the high school. Definitely there's some mental issues going on. He visited counselors and all this stuff at the school. Black Friday here, they went shopping. His dad bought a Glock, pretty excited about it. And the kid started posting all these pictures about his new gun and how excited he was about getting a new gun. And
was it the kid's gun or was it his dad's gun?
The dad purchased it, but this 15-year-old kid had access to it.
Okay, so it wasn't the kid's gun; it was the dad's gun, and the kid. Okay, just so I understand. Yep.
But and we'll get to there's a lot more to this story. Anyway, so a few days later, the kid's at school and he's looking up on AmmoLand, looking up ammunition for the Glock, and also drawing these pictures about shooting somebody in the head. So obviously the teacher freaks out, right? So she sends them to the principal's office. They call the parents. The parents come down and they visit with them, and the principal told them, you have to get this kid in counseling within 24 hours. And the parents kind of poo-pooed it, then they just sent him back to class. 15 minutes later, he shoots up the school. But fast forward a little bit, the parents decide they were going to go on the run. The state decided they were going to arrest the parents for not taking any kind of action, or being irresponsible, I guess is a better way being irresponsible with the firearm to where he could get a hold of it. Which brings us to current. Like, there's some people that say, well, you can't charge the parents for something that the kid did, which I understand that point of view. But there's also another side of me that says you need to be a responsible firearms owner. Your kid has issues because he's had issues at the high school for a while, and they just ignored those issues. It's pretty interesting. It's kind of a crazy case that could change kind of some of the gun laws that are going on in the United States. Pretty sad deal.
Yeah. It's complicated, isn't it?
It's very complicated. So, and I hesitate to share a lot of stuff because we're still learning about the parents. The parents, they were on the run. They took off, and the feds had to finally catch up to them. So I think there's a lot more to this story than what's in the news right now. The parents could be more involved with the whole incident than just buying the firearm, especially if they knew that he was thinking about shooting up the school.
It's look, there's a lot of different aspects to this, and I'm going through my head because, like, it's not something that we experience here. Firearms are so heavily regulated that just doesn't happen. That doesn't mean that there's still not disturbed people at schools and tragic things don't happen. But it's they just don't have access to guns, so they can't do it. And but I think and I'm not suggesting that that's a solution for America, because it just can't happen. But
I still think one of the best solutions is communication. Again, being parents is a huge problem. More parents are being friends instead of parents right now.
Well, I all these things, everything starts at home, and I think I saw something with Denzel Washington recently, one of his old interviews, and someone was asking him questions about the issues facing, young men, and he said it starts at home.
Yeah,
it's parents in the home, good parents in the home, teaching discipline. And look, again, I'm only going from what you just told me, and what's don't want to speculate, but I the solution, it's not a solution that I can even empathize with, because it just doesn't happen. But and to even speculate on it is
it would be unfair, really, right now.
Yeah, but just to say, that if your child has issues and you're aware of those things, then don't put things in their way that can, don't. I mean, it's a parenting decision. If you want to have firearms in the house and you've got an emotionally unstable person there, make sure they don't have access to them. And I know I don't want to sound flippant or dismissive, because it is, the whole thing, but every single needs to be looked at, on an individual basis. It's not, you can't legislate, like I said before, you can't legislate for the lowest common denominator all the time. You need to be able to do that. You need to be able to, like I said, be a parent, understand, what's happening in your children's lives. And I don't know about.
Well, so
I really don't know.
When you purchase a firearm from a dealer here, you fill out what's called a 4473, and in that form, there's a list of things that disqualifies somebody from purchasing a gun. And that same list of disqualifiers, we call an unauthorized user, which a 15-year-old child is still technically an unauthorized user, in my opinion, unless you're there. Now, my kids are responsible enough. They've been around me enough to know how to handle guns and what to do if they find a gun. But there are a lot of less caring people out there that don't even want to follow the rules, or they don't understand why the rules are, and they leave stuff lying around. And that's, honestly, a lot of the gun crime that happens in the United States comes from stolen firearms from people that don't lock them up properly.
Look, one of the rules, or one of the things that we've got here, and I'm not suggesting this is a solution at all. I'm just letting you know that this is Australia we're talking about. So, but one of the things that we have here is we have junior shooters permits.
Mm-hmm.
So, I need to be licensed to own a firearm. I can only obtain that license when I'm 15. Oh, sorry, when I'm 18. I'm gun unless I have a junior shooter's permit, which enables me to use a firearm in the company of a licensed responsible adult. Yeah. So an adult that's licensed. Okay. So that it doesn't mean I can't take someone out and introduce them to firearms and so on. But if it's something like on a regular basis, you go and you get a junior shooter's permit. So anybody who's under the age of 18 is not allowed access to a firearm on their own.
Right.
So that's the law in Australia. And I'm not suggesting that should be anything where you are, because it's a different kettle of fish. But you said before you're not allowed to purchase a gun unless you're 18 anyway. So
right. And I was going to say, the law is similar here, other than the effective licensing. But anyone under 18 can't purchase ammunition. They can't purchase a firearm. Anybody in their right mind wouldn't sell a kid a firearm, I think, private sale wise. But it would be unlawful for someone under 18 to possess a firearm in the United States without an adult being there. Now, you can go hunting with an adult, kind of similar to what you were talking about. You can purchase a rifle at 18 in the United States, but you can't purchase a handgun at 18. You have to be 21, which I don't understand that rule. If you're old enough to buy a rifle, you should be old enough to buy a handgun, but whatever.
So you can own a rifle before you're 18, but you can't own a handgun.
Well, you can purchase one at 18. So you can buy a gun. Like I bought my son a gun before he was 18, but I kept it locked up in my safe. He was unable to access that without me there, because he still doesn't actually have the safe combination, honestly. But I can't buy it and just give it to him. That would be, well, I think that would be unlawful. I'd have to dig that up, but it would be uncouth for sure.
Well, you have 20,000 gun laws to remember, so I can understand if you don't have them on hand. So,
well, hey, we've been. I can let you go. We've been on. Well, we've been talking for quite a while. We haven't been recording as long as we've been on the phone together, but I could go on all night if you wanted to.
no, look, I'm happy to. I mean, if people haven't tuned out and are still listening, I can't imagine everyone's still engrossed by my opinion on different things. But look, I'm happy to chat.
Well,
more
we
about
talked
things.
off the air about doing a little bit deeper dive on some of the legal stuff, and we talked about maybe having some people that I'm not going to mention names or occupations or connections in any way. It may not happen, but I think that would be a fascinating show. It would be awesome to have them
understand gun laws and how they relate here, as well as other laws, like self-defense laws and things.
I think that would be fascinating, and if the listeners, if that's something they'd be interested in, that'd be definitely something we'd pursue a little bit deeper, I think.
No, like I think that's something that would be interesting to get a greater understanding of that. So.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to tell the listeners of Range Minded Podcast before we say goodnight?
No. Look, I'm happy to talk about. I'm happy to come on again if you would like me to, and actually with a bit more preparation talk about something if people would like to know, let Steve know, and
this really
to share.
Chris, you need to understand, when I said Chris was kind of like a surprise guest, I literally texted him and he said, "Yeah, I'll be on." Like within starting of recording and within the text message to recording was only an hour maybe of me saying something.
So I can, like I said, I can understand if this podcast has been hit and miss because there's been no preparation. I've just been talking. So, but look, I guess from my perspective, thank you for having me on and
you're
wanting
always
to understand our perspective.
You're always a welcome guest, and we've talked before. Like, you even mentioned SHOT Show. At some point, we're gonna get you at SHOT Show, and we're gonna walk you around the largest outdoor show in the world, sporting and outdoor show, and that would be fantastic video to just watch you walk around with 100,000 other people at a huge expo.
Yeah, it'd be head and shoulders above most of them, so that would be interesting.
That's true.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll find you a reason to stay over here too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I do enjoy guns a lot. So
Yeah. So despite what people think, you can own a gun in Australia and you can enjoy the shooting sports.
Yeah. Look, I have a lot of firearms, and I do enjoy my sport shooting and target shooting, and the things that actually as I said before, like the thing I'm actually most wrapped up in at the moment is my long range precision rimfire. It's just it may not seem as fun for some people, but it's just it's a blast. Really,
I imagine it's challenging. It's got to be a challenge.
Yeah, it is. You're not dealing with something that's traveling very fast. It's fighting gravity. It's got terrible ballistic coefficients, and it's not very accurate in the comparison. But you're trying to read the wind and trying to understand what's going on. Just hitting any kind of target is so rewarding. So, yeah, no, I'm really enjoying that aspect of it, and I still really enjoy just going out and enjoy my firearms. So, yeah. So again, thank you very much for having me talk about this. And look, if people would like to, like I said, hear my opinion, maybe we can prepare something a bit better next time. So
yeah, and we will. Well, thanks again for coming on, Chris. I really appreciate you taking your afternoon over there, our evening here, and just being on. It's good to hear from you.
Well, it's been a pleasure. So, thanks a lot, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, we'll talk to you later, brother.
See you, mate. Bye.
See ya.
Hey gang, we really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. If you liked this episode, make sure you let us know and everyone know by giving us a 5-star rating and maybe sharing us with your friends. If you have an idea for an episode or a guest that you think would be cool to have on the show, or you just want to get in touch with us, you can email us at podcast@iishooting.com or hit us up on Facebook or Instagram at Range Minded Podcast. Thanks again, and take somebody shooting.